Howdy, fishermen. Tyler O'Connor here with Simplistic Fishing. We're here to teach you simple fishing techniques to help you catch more bass. Today, we're actually going to be talking about Lake Ray Hubbard. It's a lake that's right here by my house. I've caught my personal best out of this lake, 9.992 ounces, almost a 10 pounder. Also had an eight. My son's had a couple eights, some sixes. So there are some large fish in here. People are going to tell you that Lake Ray Hubbard is not a very good lake to fish. I'm going to have to somewhat agree with them that yes, it can be difficult at times, but if you stick to these areas that I'm going to point out on the video, it should help you catch more bass and put more fish in the boat. So stick around. Well, you stuck with me through the intro, so that's a good part. Let's go ahead and dive in and see what we've got. So, again, every time I do these explanations for you, I always use web app Navionics. This is a tool that you can use. I actually have the app on my phone. You have to pay for it, but this is a free tool that you can use online using your desktop or even your mobile phone. And it gives you a great contour maps of pretty much every lake that's out there. Now, some of them aren't exactly accurate, but you can get some pretty good accurate readings off this WebEx Navionics, and it's something that you should be checking out every time you go out to the lake because it will show you at different areas that you can focus on. They'll put more fish in the boat for you. So let's go ahead and get started. I actually live just right here at Rockwall, so today I'm wearing the old Rockwall hat, Go Jackets, and what I want to do is really just break down the lake for you. So we're going to start here on the northern side. This is the 66 boat ramp. So if you go over here, this would be Rowlett on this side. We've got Rockwall on this side. To start with, let's talk about the number one thing that you hear about a lot, and that's people going up to the river. Now, the river can produce you some very large fish, especially during the spawning season. There's some flats up there that you can get into, and you can catch some giants that are up there. Again, I don't really like spawn fishing, so I try to stay out of that. But I'm telling you, when they have the tournaments and things, when they go up there and they get in those flats, they absolutely tear them up. So I want to kind of show you how to get to the river, but I also want to give you a ton of caution to say if you don't know how to get up here, you probably ought to go with someone. Um, if you don't go with someone, literally idle all the way back there and make yourself a map back there because there's been several people that have lost their lower units and tore up their boats trying to get back here. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's say you launch it at 66 boat ramp, which is going to be right in here. Actually, I scrolled in too soon. Right here, 66 boat ramp. Here's your parking lot. You're going to launch there and you're going to head north. So you're going to come out and you're going to head up to the north. So you're going to spin this way and head up to the north. Now, when you get to this point right here, this is the golf course. Anything to this left side is going to be trouble. That's where all your trees and everything are that are going to give you problems. You're going to want to hug this right side and you're going to say, but Tyler, that right side's like 2 or 3 foot of water. I know, but hug the right side. Okay. Just hug the right side, trim up, take your time. Don't try to be a speed demon through here. You're going to tear your stuff up. Hug the right side. You'll come right in through here and hug the right side of this bank. You'll hug that bank all the way up until you get past the tip of the golf course, which is about right in here. And then you can start to open it up a little bit. But again, staying pretty much on this side, stay away from the timber on this side. You'll see the timber line that's here. Now, as you're coming up this timber line, you're going to stay on the right side and you'll start to see the power lines. These are the power lines right here. You can see them right here on this peak. You'll start to see the power lines. Somewhere right in here, the trees will actually break and there'll be a straight chute that you can take that will take you right to those power lines. Now you'll know you're in the right spot because there's a tree limb that's right here on that break, and on the left hand side there's a little light dangling from that tree limb. If you see that light, you're on the right channel and just follow that channel straight. Figure out what power line that you line up with at that angle and then just run that straight line. Okay, once you do that, that's going to take you right to the power lines. Now, when you get to the power lines, you're going to start to slow down. Obviously, you're not going very fast. You're going to come in the power lines and you'll see some poles in the water. Stay on the left side of those poles. Okay. Stay on the left side of the poles as you're coming in. And then you're going to see a pole The very last pole is like standing in the middle, or it might even be a stump. Sometimes it's a stump. You can see it out there. I think they call it the dead man stump because someone tagged it one time going full throttle back there. But that is essentially telling you you've gone too far. So if you see that stump, start turning right. Okay. As you're turning right, you're going to start to see the opening of this creek. It's not very obvious, but what you'll see is there's a little rope that's hanging off the tree, and it's orange, and you'll see it dangling there. That tree, what you'll want to do is you'll want to take your boat and you're going to want to slide your boat right up against that tree when you're coming in through there. Now, there's a lot of washout from that creek, and so it'll put a lot of the soot and the mud and things right by that tree. So you'll actually feel your prop as you're coming by that tree kind of hit that mud. And then you'll get into some deeper water. Now, when you come in there, just hang to the right a little bit, not too far to the right because there's sumps there. Again, staying idle the whole time. And then you'll realize once you get in here that you are just in like bass heaven. Um, there's so many things to fish here. There's lily pads, there's grass, there's current, there's two different rivers that you can fish. I mean, there's just so much that you can fish back here. You can flip, you can do baits that move a lot. There's just so much that you can do. So when you come in, we've had a lot of success right there at the opening mouth of the creek. We've also had a lot of success on any of these bends. So if you get into the bends, depending on the time of year and where the fish are setting up at, those bends will really produce for you. You can also come up this river channel, and it's about, I'd say, about halfway up before this split. You're going to see a channel off to your right. It doesn't even show it here on this map. I think it's somewhere up in here, maybe we're up in here. But what this will do is there's a little channel that follows you through, and this you follow that over. And you only want to do this in the springtime, maybe in the summertime too. But other than that, it doesn't really produce a lot of fish. But if you follow that back, that is a giant spawning flat. All right, so go back there, turn your electronics off, and just go around and flip all the trees and all the cover. Do some side fishing. Do whatever you do to catch those spawning fish. But that flat can be very, very magical come springtime. All right. If it's not springtime, just stay out of it and really fish the river. Fish this opening here can produce some pretty good fish. The locals say, go left side or go right side. And I think it's about 50-50. I've lived here for about 10 years, and I was taught to always go to the left side, but now I'm starting to hear that you go to the right side more often. Me personally, because I've fished it more, I always go left at the split, but you can go right or you can go left. Either way works. I know there's a lot of white bass that tend to go right. As opposed to left. I don't know why, but the white bass tend to go right. I've had a lot of success with largemouth going left. And you can follow this creek channel up so far. I mean, you can fish it all day long and rarely see other boats that are in there. So I would definitely suggest if you're going out to Hubbard, take a look at the river, man. The river can produce you some good fish, especially this time of year. Right now, it's December the 27th. It's cold outside. The bite's really slow. If I was going fishing today, if I could, and it wasn't blowing 25 miles an hour outside, I'd probably head up to the river and see if I could catch me some big ones. So, anyways, come out to Hubbard, take a look at the river. Now, let's switch over and let's talk about the south side of the lake and some different areas we can fish over there. All right, we talked about the river. Now let's talk about the main body of water, basically all of Lake Ray Hubbard. So I'll be honest, I don't go back to the river that often. I've gone back there a few times. I've scratched my boat up a few times. I I like going back there, but at the same time, I don't like going back there. It seems like I always find a reason why I don't need to go back there. I think that's actually helped me because it's forced me to fish the main lake and forced me to understand the main lake better, and teaching me some really good things. But at the same time, man, I love, love, love river fishing. All right, so let's go on. Let's talk about the main lake. Again, we're going to start here at the 66 boat ramp. This is Highway 66. This is rock wall. Rowlette's over here off to the west side. All right. So if I were to launch at 66, one of the first places that I would always focus on would be the 66 riprap. I don't know what it is about this riprap, but it produces fish year round. You can pretty much count on going here and finding fish somewhere, whether they be up on the rocks or whether they be on the bridge pillars, but somewhere in that area, there's lots of fish there. There's not only bass there, there's a lot of catfish there too. I've seen some really, really large catfish caught off of the 66 riprap. On the south side, Of the riprap, I've had some success, but not a lot of success. Most of the areas where I do tend to catch the fish on the 66 riprap would be where these creek beds actually come in. So right here, there's a little power line here, and there's a hump, and there's another creek bed that comes in right here, and that tends to produce that road bed. I've caught a few off this backside road bed as well. I've also caught them on the backside of that road bed on the south side, on the north side of 66 too. Now, the point itself right here on 66 can produce some really good fish. Right here on the corner on the south side and on the north side corners can produce you some really good fish depending on the time of year. You just want to use your electronics, see if you see some bait fish there. If you do, definitely stop and fish it. What I want to warn you about, though, is on the right hand corner of my screen here, which would be the south side of the point. Right here is some kind of hang up. I don't know if it's metal or what it is that's underneath there, but you will get your bait there stuck there 100% of the time. So do not cast in that one little area, and you'll know because you'll hit it once and you'll get hung up and you'll lose your lure, and you'll just remember, hey, that Tyler from Simplistic Fishing told me about that. I should have known. But just be careful right there because you'll lose a lot of lures. All right. So we've launched at 66. We fished the riprap. Now where are we going to go? The next place I would go would actually be to these two little points over here to the west side. This point right here, the first one that you see, it gets kind of shallow back in here. It doesn't produce us a lot of fish, but what it will do is if you get the wind going in the right direction, north or south, it produces some pretty good current coming through here. And you can see we've got some good creek channels through here and some other things that are good fish attractors. And I think there's actually maybe even a brush pile out here somewhere. But if you set up on the side of these points and you cast out, so again, I would set the boat up like where the 7 is, and I would cast out here and bring it back. That tends to get you some very good fish. You got some pretty good drop off there. You're fishing about 20 foot of water and bringing it up to about 7. You may position the boat where the 7 is, or you might go on the opposite side. So maybe the wind's coming from the north, go to the opposite side, see if the bait fish are traveling down this way, and see if you can mimic what those bait fish are doing. So try those points. Those points can produce. I've caught a very large fish. I think it was like a 6 pounder in a tournament right here off of this point. So they can produce fish. Be careful. These points come out pretty far and they've got some pretty big rocks on them. So don't get close to them. Just cast to them, cast over them with shaky heads, Carolina rigs, crankbaits, things like that. You'll be surprised at what you'll catch. There's also some brush piles in here. I've never really caught any fish on them. I've seen some fish on them in these areas, but never really had a lot of success. And then right here on the side, for whatever reason, right here on the north side of the second point, there's some concrete that slides down and you'll see it. Sometimes that can produce some pretty good fish too. So let's take a look at that. All right, so moving on, there's several different areas I've tried to fish on Hubbard. I mean, you can see we've got some great creek channels and things like that. And I would have sworn that this point could produce some good fish at some point in time. I've just never had a lot of success there. I don't know why, but I mean, my gosh, you've got a creek channel coming up against you. You've got some good drop off. It's got to produce some fish at some point in the year. So we'll keep trying it, but might be a place you want to try. Now, what you'll want to do, obviously, on Hubbard, you don't want to run straight up the middle of the lake. So you either want to go the right side or the left side. So let's just stick with the left side, and then we'll switch over to the right side here in a minute. So if we're coming up the left side, um, there's lots of good stuff that you can fish through here. I wouldn't say really good stuff, but stuff that you can fish. But what I would do is I would run up and see this first point right here. This has got a lot of chunk rock and stuff on it. Depending on what time of year it is, this could produce some pretty good fish as well. So just go out, get you a lipless crankbait or something like that, and just hit that point every time you run by it. Sometimes you'll be surprised at what you can catch. Then, as you're moving on down, when you come to this first cove, there's actually some stick ups, like some buckbrush that's right in here. And you can catch some fish in there sometimes just flipping stuff around, shaky heads, Texas rig worms, things like that. So maybe give that a whirl too. Again, depending on the time of year, if it's dead middle of winter, that's probably not going to where you're going to go fish. But if it's springtime, you never know. You might find a fish that's bedding right around that area. Another good spot to check out wintertime, fall time, summertime is really the public hump, or I call it the public hump of Hubbard. I see people out there a lot. I think a lot of people are white bass fishing, though. I don't see too many bass fishermen out there, but there's some great fish to be caught out there. But you can see this hump, if you just follow the railroad track down, that'll keep you out of the trees. and fish around this hump. This hump can produce some good fish for you. A lot of Carolina red fish, wobbleheads, things like that, your larger baits. Again, this is more of a summertime honey hole. And as we're talking about that, if you scroll over and let's say you're coming up the right side, you've got a pretty good juncture here too. You've got some creek beds here that meet. Sometimes you'll see some fish schooling up here. They'll also hang around this broken bridge or this underwater bridge. So check that out as well. So we'll come off that hump, we'll move on, we'll come down. There is one little dock in here, and I don't know why. It's right in here. My son and I call this the 5 pounder hole because we caught a 5 pounder in here one time. So we just name each one of those pockets different names. So we call it the 5 pounder hole. But there's a little dock here, and there's a pond back there, and there's some riprap, and it's like a drainage ditch or something. But if you fish around this, there's some grass over here too, especially around that dock. Fish around that dock, do it slow, fish some jigs, things like that. You'd be surprised. There's some big ones just hanging around that dock, and I'm not sure what's so special about that dock, but I'd imagine it's that drainage ditch that comes through there. It's definitely something that attracts them, and there's some really hard surfaces down there as well. All right, so moving on, we're going to skip all this other stuff. I've always thought that this area right here would be good because it has a really good drop off. But again, not a lot of success there. Not sure why, but just haven't had success there. That doesn't mean it's not a good spot to fish. It just means I haven't had a lot of success there. One spot, though, that is a little sneaky spot on Hubbard that I'll tell you about is right here. So you can see where this little dotted line comes down. And there's something on the bank there. I think it's a big hole or something like that. But follow this down, and this is a hump. You can kind of see it here. It goes up to 8 feet. And right where that hump comes off and that creek goes in, that is a really good spot to fish. So take a look at that. Again, can produce you some good fish. Of course, you can always fish the riprap on 30 both sides. You could spend all day on just 66 riprap and 30 riprap and probably catch plenty of fish without having to go to any of these other spots. But if you're like me, I don't really like fishing by that traffic all day. So eventually I've got to pull off and find a different spot. Just go up 30 if you want, fish the riprap. You can, parallel with the bank, throw you some crankbaits and things like that. You'll probably get some good 2 or 3 pounders. You'll probably end up with a 10 or 12 pound bag just fishing riprap. So if you just want to go out, take your kid out or something like that, you want to be guaranteed to catch some fish on Hubbard, stick the riprap because it will pay off. All right, so as we're staying on the the south side of 66, Harbor Bay Marina can produce fish every once in a while. I don't have a lot of success fishing the stalls per se. I've caught some fish there every once in a while, but not enough to really make me want to go back. But one area in Harbor Bay that does produce, especially in the spring and summer, is right back here. So you can see this little flat back here. They love the frog back there. So go back there, throw you some frog, throw you some stuff like that. You'll be surprised at what you can catch. And you can catch some stuff right around this point too. There's some sunken tires and stuff like that you can take a look at. So anyways, that is really the breakdown between 66 and 30. Stick around for some more, and we're going to go on the other side of 30, on the south side of 30, and we're going to talk about fishing around Chandler's and Bayside and all those other areas. So stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, so now we've talked about the south side of 66 between 30. We've talked about the river. Now let's talk a little bit more about even more main lakes. So here is I-30. This is going to be Garland over here. You've got Bass Pro in this area, different stuff, and then you've got Rockwall on this side. I'm just going to start right here, starting underneath the bridge, all right? I've seen some giants caught off the corners of these bridges, so definitely don't be shy to set up, post up, however you want to do, find out which way the current's running, and then fish that current to your advantage on those points, because those points can produce you some big fish. I actually have a lot of success right here on this corner. Not sure why, but right here, I think there's a tree down there or something that's attracting them. But right here is a really good place to post up and just slow fish it and take your time. You'll be surprised at what you'll catch. You'll see a lot of fish too underneath these underneath the causeways for sure. And if you're a crappie fisherman, this is a money spot for crappie. We've just loaded up the boat with crappie on that side. Now we fished over here by the harbor and not had a lot of success, and we've had a ton of success over here on Bayside though. Bayside's got several different areas that you can fish. The first part obviously is just the riprap. You've got a good grass line that comes right here. So in the summer and the spring, this is a frog heaven. If the water's high enough, you can come over here and you can load the boat up with frogs. I mean, they are just always going crazy right in here. There's also an old pond dam that's right in here that I see a lot of people fishing. I haven't had a lot of success right here on the pond dam. I've had more success over here on the riprap. But on the pond dam, you'll see them fishing, and then there's riprap all along this bank side. And you can basically just fish that riprap with all different kinds of things and have a lot of success. I'm not going to say you're going to catch really huge fish fishing this riprap right in here, but every once in a while, depending on the time of the year, you'll get some giants that'll come back in here and set up on this point, and they'll also come back in here and spawn back in the back. So you can really have a heyday back here. We think we've had days where we've just stayed in Bayside the whole day and caught 20, 30 fish. So it can definitely happen. Now, on the backside of Bayside, of course, you can just fish that bank line if you want, and you'll have some success. But then, it's really definitely a time of year thing. So it's only on pretty much during the spring, and then when it starts getting late summer, they start pulling back off. It's a little too shallow for them, I think. There is a brush pile on the backside of Bayside right in here. You can check out some underwater concrete stuff, and there's some brush piles. And you can catch some pretty good fish in there. And also just this little cut right here. It has some pipes and stuff that's going underneath there, and we've caught some pretty quality fish just in this area, Bayside. Now, also, if you come up, of course, riprap all through there. You've got some good stuff in here. You can catch some pretty good fish right here off this point. Okay, don't let that point scare you. It's got a lot of crap around and some post and concrete and stuff like that. But if you've been around bass fishing long enough, you know that the harder the place to get to is probably where they're going to be, and they love setting up there. And that's also a good place to go in the wintertime. Fish that break wall and just fish the break wall slowly with umbrella rigs, things like that. Crankbaits, swim baits, stuff like that. Just fish around all that stuff, and they'll hang on those posts and that concrete. I think it's because the warmer weather or the sun heats up that concrete for them and gives them some warmth, so they like to stick close to it. But there are some giants on that break wall, so in the wintertime, focus on that break wall. Now, as we move on, there's a couple different places. You've got some good drops here. We've caught some good quality fish right off of this drop using Carolina rigs, wobble heads, stuff like that. And then you've also got some good areas right here off of Robinson Point. Off the point here, you've got some good road beds. You've got some chunk rock right in here that can produce some pretty good fish as well. I found that there's a lot of brush piles back in this corner. I've just never caught any fish back there, probably because I've only fished it 2 or 3 times. But if you're ever back there, maybe try out the brush piles that are back there and see if they can produce you some fish. I'm going to be totally honest. I typically don't go past Bass Pro and up. I've gone there a few times. I'm not going to talk about it on this review because I don't feel I've spent enough time on that part of the lake to give you a valid review of what's actually up there. I know there's some good fish up there. It's just a long ways from the house, so I pretty much stick on this side. All right, so we're out here off of Robinson Point. I talked to you guys about the brush piles that were there. We've got Bass Pro over here. Now, this is a pretty common area. If you look here on this point that comes right off of here, you got some really good point. You got some old house foundations and things like that that are over here. This area can produce some fish for you, so you definitely want to give it a try. Slow down again, Carolina rigs, wobbleheads, stuff like that, the slower stuff, but try it. Those drop offs, sometimes they'll load up here, they'll set up here before spawn, stuff like that. It can be a really, really good place to find them. Now, if we go over back here by Captain's Cove produces fish a lot as well, summer, spring, fall. Good riprap off the front of Captain's Cove, and you've also got some good spawning areas back in the back, when the time is right. To go back there and check those out. There's some big fish back there too, for sure. I've seen a lot of people come back here in the grass. There's a lot of grass in these 2 pockets, and I've caught fish back here, but I'll be honest, I don't go back here very often. To me, it doesn't produce enough fish for me to keep me coming back. But I know there's fish over there, and maybe if I just spend more time there, I'll catch more fish. But for me, I pretty much stay away from it. The power plant riprap, though, however, this whole Long Island, it's a great place to fish. And again, it's just like the 66 riprap and the 30 riprap. You just tie on a crankbait, a square bill, a medium diver, and maybe even a deep diver. You figure out what depth they're in, and then you just parallel that bank and you run with it. And usually you'll get on some pretty good fish. Now, there's always some key areas in here that you'll want to focus on. Anywhere where these creeks come in, there's an old road bed that's right here. And again, another one that's up there, and then right in this area on this side, so it would be on the east side of this point. Scroll in right where that roadbed is. There's some underwater stuff down there. There's a brush pile down there. There's some big old chunks of concrete and stuff that they like to gather around. So take a look at that area. That can produce some pretty good fish too. You can also go down by the power plant, which would be right in here. And when you're at the power plant, there's a power plant hump. You can see it right here on Navionics. Take a look at that. Huge drop off on the south side of it, and a lot of times they'll set up on those drop offs, and you can catch some really nice fish setting there. That is definitely a timing thing for me. I've gone there several times and not caught anything, and then I've gone there before and had a great day there. So, not really sure if what where they're going after that. I haven't been able to find them once they leave that hump, but if they're on that hump or around that hump, they're usually pretty active, and we can catch a lot of them. So scrolling on down, once we get past the power plant, these points can produce pretty good fish. There's some brush piles off those points. I don't have a lot of success on the side of this lake, so I don't typically fish over here. But there are some pretty good areas that are over here. There's also a really good rock pile down here by the water intake of the dam. So scrolling over now, we're going to start on the very far south side of Ray Hubbard. So this would be your dam, and this is where the output from the dam, flows on out. Right above the dam, right when you get on the last little buoy, it's the very last buoy. You can see here, there's a little point that comes out right there, and there's a bridge that's underneath the water right here. You don't want to hit it with your boat. You don't even want to be over there in the boat because it's illegal to be over there. But anyways, just stay right on that buoy line and cast towards that bridge. If you go there in the summertime or the spring or sometimes even in the fall, that spot can be a tournament winner for you. Just go there and again throw in the slow stuff and just work in that area the best that you can. You'll be surprised. You'll find some pretty good fish out there. And I think it's a community hole because I see people there a lot. But then again, I'm not sure if it is a community hole because I don't see people there enough to know that it's truly a community hole that everyone goes to. So going on up from that spot, we're going to go into what Lana and I call the Money Cove. And we call this Money Cove because it used to be called Dink Cove because we catch a lot of small fish in here. But if you're going out with your son and you're fishing Ray Hubbard and you want to get them on some fish and get them excited about fishing, I would just go to Money Cove. I wouldn't even mess around with anything else. Just come up here, go to Money Cove, and see what you can produce because you're going to find fish in here. They live in here, they're resident fish, and this is typically where you can find them. Now, you're not going to find giants, although we have caught some very large ones. In fact, my son's PB before the one he just caught was right here from this grass line. So there are some big fish in here, but typically they're going to be the smaller ones. But as you come in here, fish the points. A lot of times they're going to be fishermen on the bank here, so you're not going to be able to fish it. But fish these points if you can. Be careful; you're going to get hung up a lot. So don't be throwing stuff in there that's going to get hung up. Don't throw any exposed hooks or anything like that because you will get hung up. But as you come in, a couple different spots you can set is you can come in here and you can set parallel to this bank and cast out. And if you do that with a Carolina rig, sometimes depending on the wind, especially the wind's blowing this way, that can be a really, really, really good setup. So set your boat parallel this way and then cast out like towards the 16. The other areas that you can focus on, there's a good creek channel in here. But in the spring and the summer, this is loaded with grass. It's just weeds and stuff like that. I don't even know what kind of grass it is. But just fish that whole bank line. Throw spinner baits, throw frogs, and throw swim baits. And pretty much if you go out there with your son, let's say you're taking him fishing, tie on a Carolina rig, tie on a frog, tie on a swim bait, and tie on a spinner bait, and that's all you need. You do those 4 setups, you're going to catch fish, especially if you go to that area. So take a look at it, check it out. If you're out on Hubbard, a great place to fish. The next place would be that I really point out. There's a good little pocket here you can try. Sometimes this pocket will produce. It's got some grass in it. Most of the time of year, it's pretty much a dud. It's all dirty water and nasty, but every once in a while, you can get you on some pretty good ones in there. The next place would be Rush Creek, which is right here. This is a common area that a lot of people like to fish. You see a lot of boats, a lot of traffic in this area. This place gets hit pretty hard. This little shallow area here, it's got some pretty good drop off. You'll catch a lot of bass right in this area. You'll also catch a lot of bass down this bank line right here in front of Rush Creek, and on that drop off right in here. There's a brush pile or some kind of a pile that's right in this area. So take a look at that. That probably produces some pretty good fish. There is a very good creek bed that comes back in here, and there's some good timber you can fish around with jerk baits and things like that, depending on the water color. And then in the springtime, when the fish start spawning, all this area back in here is great to fish. So take a look in the back of Rush Creek. That can produce some pretty good fish as well. The next one would be Yankee Creek. Yankee Creek, I don't have a ton of success in, but I've caught fish there, just not very big fish for some reason. So again, going down the bank line, there's grass on the each side of the bank line. You can fish that with frogs, swim bait, spinner bait. Catch some pretty good fish springtime. If you come out a little bit further out of Yankee Creek, though, and you get into this area where the flooded timber, we've got some good fish right in here. So there's a little creek channel that comes out right here. There's some flooded timber, and sometimes those fish will stage up there, and you can catch them pretty good due to some offshore fishing, things like that. You can come up in this little pocket too in the springtime. This is a good spawning area, so take a look at that. The other areas I just want to cover, which we're almost done, I promise, would be Terry Park and the area around Terry Park. This is brush pile heaven. You can see here there's a creek channel that comes right along here. If you follow that creek channel, anything to the right side of it, you will see brush piles galore. You'll see fish. These can be key areas to win tournaments, to catch that big fish. You're going to get hung up a lot. It's going to be a slow bite. It's going to be tough. But the ones that you do get are going to be big, and they're going to be quality fish. So stay out here, fish those brush piles, be patient, and you'll be surprised at what you can catch. Also, at the very edge of Terry Park, so right where the parking lot is, there's a bathroom up here and stuff like that. At the very point right there, there's a really good spot right in there. I don't know if it's a hard surface on the bottom or if it's a brush pile or what it is, but take a look at that, because again, that's a good staging spot for them. A nice little point that comes off there, and sometimes you'll find some really good fish. All right, the last section I want to talk to you about, and it's probably the section that most people fish, I think, that live in this area, and that's Chandler's Landing. Chandler's Landing is known to be the home of the big fish. This is where all the tournaments used to be let out, so they always release their fish here. You've got a lot of resident fish that like to hang around Chandler's Landing, and so it's a great area to go and to fish. It's going to be a little crowded though, and you're going to have to deal with wakeboarders and things like that. But there are, again, some really big fish in here. I've caught several 4 or 5 pounders in this area. I think we've caught a 6 or 7 right here off this point too. So definitely some good areas to check out. So let's talk about Chandler's Landing real quick, and that'll finish up Ray Hubbard for you and hopefully give you plenty of spots to go check out. So on the point here, right at Chandler's, when you come up to it, this is a great spot, especially winter time, when the fish are pulling off and getting a little bit deeper. They like this point for some reason. There's a good creek channel right here. There's a submerged culvert. There's a lot of action going on here, and I think this creates a little bit of current too, because it's like a little bit of a pinch that you see there. So go here, throw some crankbaits, Carolina rigs, all that good stuff. See what you catch. You might be surprised. Flip around the break wall, both sides. Okay, flip around it. Depending on the time of year, it's going to depend on where they are. Use your graph, see if you can locate them, and then flip this break wall. This break wall can produce pretty good fish pretty much all times of year. Right around here, this right here at the end of this break wall, that's a really, really good spot. So slow down when you get there and focus on that. You've got chunk rock in here as well, all along this bank line. So focus on that. Spend a lot of time there. Focus on that chunk rock. They're always going to be there. They're always going to be maybe not on the inside there, but they're always on this outside. So if you can fish this outside chunk rock, you're going to find a lot of fish. I fished the outside of this, like the south side of it. Not as good down here, but definitely the side towards the main lake is a great place to fish. Flipping the docks with spinner baits and worms and wacky rigs and Nico rigs and all the different kinds of things you can throw around the docks, that's going to produce you fish too. I mean, there's just fish loaded up in Chandler's. Right here on this point is a great place to fish. There's a submerged brush pile or a rock pile right on the corner of this dock right in here that'll produce you fish too. This little marina, the fish like to set up underneath there. So again, another good place you can fish. And then there's one of these docks. I think it's this one has like the fire boat that's out there. I've caught a 5 pounder right underneath that fire boat. So go take a look at it. Flip some stuff back there, see what you can catch. Again, Ray Hubbard's not the greatest lake to fish for bass fishing, and I definitely wouldn't put it in like the top 100 bass lakes to fish of all time. But if you're like me and you live in the local area because you have to be close to airports and things like that for work, and you just need a good little local lake to fish, Ray Hubbard can produce some good fish for you. And surprisingly not, all of the different lakes that we fished in East Texas and all of that, our personal best, mine and Landon's, my son, have both came from Ray Hubbard. So they're big fish here. Don't overlook it. It's a short drive for a lot of people, and it can be a really good day of fishing. So make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. I hope this stuff has been very helpful to you. We'll do more lake breakdowns as we discover more lakes. I think the next one coming is probably going to be Lake Tawakoni. So again, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll bring you some more content. Appreciate you sticking with us. Tight lines.